Reframe community, what is going on? Jordan here, doing something a little bit different. You may be used to the Real Talk podcast, which is coming back, by the way. We're working on it. We're figuring out some super dope, cool stuff. But one of the things we wanted to add this year was to take the opportunity to interview some people that we know and trust that are engaging youth in different ways that may be helpful for you as you think through how to solve problems and reach more youth in your context. And so today I want to introduce my homie, Dr. Willie Kelley, who is doing his thing in the school administrative space and in the youth ministry space too. But yeah, man, why don't you tell us who you are, bro? How about that?
How you doing, community? Thank you for having me on, Jordan. I appreciate it. Always of my heart to share all the different things that I have been able to do and the passion points that I have. And so God has blessed me and put me in this space for those reasons. So thank you for the platform. 19-year educator here. I serve as an associate principal right now of curriculum and instruction of a 6A high school here in Texas. But what's even more fascinating is that I've been in the youth ministry space for over 20 years now. Over 20 years now.
I didn't know that, bro. 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 20 years now. And so what's crazy is for the longest of time I was asking God, when are you going to let me do one or the other? And it's been like, nah, I'm just going to give you the strength to keep doing both. And so I've been traveling.
Hey, somebody needed to hear that, bro.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, here I am. Again, I've served in a few different school districts. I've had the opportunity to have youth pastors come to campuses and partner. I've had other faith-based organizations come to partner. And, as we kind of talk through what those partnerships look like this afternoon, is definitely a space that I'm familiar with.
Dope. Yeah, man, that's super cool. I think it's super dope, too, that you live in both worlds. So I'm sure to some degree, or to the most degree, the nth degree, you understand the challenges of the youth leader, but then more uniquely, you understand the challenges behind the scenes, being a part of an administration of a school and all the different things that are going on that if you're just a youth leader, you might not have any clue about. And so, man, I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to learn from your wisdom today. And hopefully for the listener, for the youth leader who's out there, this will be helpful for them as they think about how to engage the schools that are around them. Because as we know, we got to go where these kids are, and where they are is at school. And so, yeah, man, first question from you, from your perspective as a public administrator, what do youth leaders often misunderstand about how public schools actually function, and what does that affect?
Great question. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is really how school districts and schools operate, right? It's not just about relational spaces. Now, don't get me wrong, relationships matter deeply, but public schools operate through systems, and understanding what those systems are can give the youth leader an opportunity to fit into those spaces to develop the relationships that they want with the youth, with the kids. Public schools, they operate through accountability. Of course, one of their biggest things is compliance, right? So what that may look like for the youth leader is they may have to undergo a background check. They operate through structure. So what that could look like for the youth leader is there are some campuses that have time to allow that relationship to flourish before the campus opens officially. For other campuses, it may have to be after school. Then there are other campuses that may have a set aside advisory period during the day where they allow that relationship to flourish. And so it's definitely a balance between legal obligations and student well-being. And those things have to operate simultaneously. So, and then that's just the reality. And so when those nuances can be figured out, then the partnership becomes far more effective and sustainable, because I think now the organization is aware of the youth leader and the youth leader is aware of the organization, and now they could work together to develop the holistic kid. And so I think that is probably some of the biggest misunderstandings, is just really how the campus or the school district operates.
That's good. Yeah, it just makes me think about being a youth leader, and sometimes you come in and you feel like perhaps the school is cold towards you or doesn't want you there. And I think there are cases where that is true as well. But I think there are also cases where perhaps we're just not doing what's necessary or doing the legwork that we need to do to know the things that we need to know to engage the school in the ways that it needs to be engaged, right?
Sure, sure. And in all fairness, to the youth leader that's wanting to go where the kids are, first of all, we applaud your heart. We applaud your heart because, as scripture tells us, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so I would definitely encourage any youth pastor, if you're interested in approaching a campus, then follow that. And what that could look like is you calling that campus or sending an email to the campus. Could be the principal, could be the assistant principals, could be the counselor, or maybe a teacher at that campus, an athletic coach, an extracurricular sponsor, to say, hey, how can I set up a meeting? Because I want to partner with y'all. And Jordan, I've never been at a campus where a community partner that wanted to come in and had clear agendas and conversation with that campus has turned down a community partner that wants to come in and have a positive relationship with the kids. I've never encountered that because research shows that kids that are connected to something stand a better chance of being more successful because what they have is a support system. And so it's definitely a welcomed partnership. I think more youth leaders just need to know how to go about doing it and operating in those spaces.
That's good. What would you say, and this is kind of a question just as you're talking, what would you say for the youth leader who maybe experiences some resistance from the school? Maybe they feel that they've been shut out. Maybe they've sent those emails. Is there any wisdom that you'd have on how they should go about continuing to build a relationship with that school? Maybe if the administration has some skepticism towards said local church or said local organization?
Yeah, I'm always a chain of command kind of guy. And so I would want to find a way to have conversation with the head of that campus. I would want to find a way to set up a scheduled meeting with the principal of that campus for those conversations. And when I go to meet with that principal, I'm not just, for lack of a better term, shooting from the hip. I should have some structured questions written down or typed out that I want to ask so that I'm not wasting anyone's time. Principals typically work 12 to 14 hours a day, depending on extracurricular activities and etc. And so time is very valuable. And so you want to be prepared when you're trying to approach that campus. Additionally, one of the things that I would suggest, if you really want to get the heartbeat of a school district and what their campuses are doing, go to a board meeting.
That's good.
Go to a board meeting. That's where you're going to hear the breakdown of the entire school district as well as its campuses, depending on what night you go. But you're going to hear a financial report. You're going to hear about other partnerships that are going on. You're going to hear about reports that the students are doing at different campuses that highlight the district. You're going to hear some needs that are available. You're going to hear people from the community talk and come bring their concerns about things that are going on. And that's a very good way to get a really good pulse on what's going on in the school districts and the campuses. What we have to know is school districts and campuses, they only survive by meeting the needs of the kids. They tailor themselves and what they offer because that's what the community needs. And so the programs that they offer is because they have proven data that says we need this to offer this for our students because this data suggests that. That's how the campuses should be operating, through data-driven instruction. And that's how they find out what programs they may need to bring. Now, there are some mandated things that campuses have to do, absolutely. but everything else should be tailored around what students actually need in that community. The same with school districts. They offer what the community needs, and oftentimes voices are heard to know what they need at the board meetings.
That's really good. I've never heard that said before. I really like that, because you may not be able to get that meeting with the principal, or you may be struggling to, but going to that board meeting, you're going to learn about your school district, and then also you might end up connecting with someone at the board meeting, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And so that could be an incredible opportunity too. That's really cool. That's good.
Absolutely. I mean, the most times in your districts at the board meeting, you're going to have your cabinet members there. Those are your chief academic officers. Those are your leads of the counseling departments. All of the heads of those different programs that filter down through the campuses, they're going to be at those meetings. And there's an opportunity to learn a name and connect with them through an email, right?
That's good.
And set up
That's really
some time to have conversation. And so it's not about setting off the red alert, but it's about learning who can I talk to that can connect me so that I can go and fulfill this purpose that's pressing upon my heart.
And who's that person of peace, right? Who's the person at that school that's going to open the door for you, that's going to allow you to borrow trust from them so that you can get connected? Because sometimes that's what it takes, right? Like, oh, okay, no, I know that person. Their church is cool. They're really good people. They want to serve. They want to come alongside the school. Okay, cool. Because obviously we do know that there are people in systems that are skeptical of, religious organizations or whatever.
Sure.
And so I think we got to be cognizant of that as we step into those spaces as well. So that's really good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So another question for you. I know that you've done some research on this, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, which is super dope and exciting. And your research kind of focuses on parental engagement, and it includes high performing students as well. So what did you discover in that research that youth leaders should understand about parents?
Yeah. So, and I've done some extensive research through a formal doctoral program on the impact of parental engagement on academically high performing high school students, performance through partnership. Additionally, I've written a book for faith-based leaders titled United, and it's a guide to building stronger ministries with parental engagement. So parental engagement is my space. And basically, there's a lot to be said there, but one of the things that I think that is key to know is that parents a lot of times like to be invited to the spaces where their kids are. Sometimes parents don't know that they have the opportunity to be a part of their child's learning, whether it be in the academic space or whether it be in the faith-based space. And something that school districts or campuses try to do a good job at is having those programs, those outlets to reach out to parents and say, hey, we want you to be a part of your child's education here. And it just works for the best interest of the kid, right? Parents are, by design, the kid's number one advocate, or should be, right? If you think about it, the parent knows their kid. My mom had 3 children. I have 2 older sisters. If you brought a situation and you said that one of these children did it, she could tell you if that child did it or if that child didn't, just based on knowing her children, right? And so when you partner with the parent, a lot of times you'll pass first base because there's some things that they can tell you about their child that you would never know because it just has never been unlocked. What parents lean on, though, is those organizations to be experts in their spaces so that they can guide them in that way. But as far as letting them know about their child, they know about their child. And so partner with them, because sometimes you need that child to stay after school, or you need that child wants to be a part of a program. Well, that relationship with that parent goes a long way when you have that trust built. And it's actually no different on the faith-based side. Parents just need to be invited to the space. And I go in detail about that in my book, United. I give explicit strategies that youth leaders can do to invite parents into spaces so that they can partner with them so that the kid grows holistically. That's a discovery that has taken me down a rabbit hole. I read all things dealing with parents and kids. I write now all different types of things, but particularly the engagement piece. And that engagement piece, the engagement of it is the two-way street. It's not just call the parent when there's an issue, whether they're at church or whether they're at school. Don't just call the parent when there's an issue. Develop a relationship with the parent because they need to hear positive things as well. Success is not accidental, and success can be nurtured, but it has to be nurtured, and it's shown to be nurtured in its most optimum form when it's supported through alignment between families and institutions.
That's really good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. And I think it's interesting that you say that like, it could just be as simple as inviting parents to be a part. And sure. I think it's interesting to you say that because I'm thinking about it as a youth leader. I think parents are essential to seeing youth grow in their faith. They have the most influence. They're spending the most time with them. The things that they're talking about and not talking about are having an incredible impact on those young people. So it's really important for us to have a relationship with them. But what I've seen is we often like do this parent meeting, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do parent meetings, but I'm like, is it as simple as us just maybe having a parent night where parents come to youth? And it's not just, hey, we're doing this separate thing for you, but hey, we're doing this thing where you get to be a part of what we usually do on a Wednesday night. You know, I know that schools do curriculum nights and all those different types of things. I wonder if that's kind of like the same kind of thing, perhaps. But as I'm just hearing you talk, I'm thinking about, man, how do we invite parents into the space and let them know that it's possible for them to be a part of the youth ministry and what's going on there if they would like to, and we would like them to?
Absolutely. One of the things that I talk about when I'm talking with educators, whether it be through the format of a workshop or churches as well, inviting parents to be a part is not another thing to do. It's a part of what you do. It should be embedded into whatever calendar that you have throughout the year. It should be a part of what you do, not just looked upon as another thing to do. And if you embed it into your calendar, then you're being intentional about inviting parents. Now, it's not just about the parents, but what that does is ultimately it reinforces the family structure. And, you know, Jordan, you and I know that there are so many distractions nowadays that family structure just isn't the way it used to be. Mm-hmm. Parents are working, kids are involved in activities, and there's a great opportunity for parents and kids to almost be passersby just because of the scheduling. What about the parent that's working? What about the parent that wants to be there for their kid, but because of their situation, they're working 2 jobs and they can't be there? What is the youth leader doing for that parent? What is the district, what is the campus doing for that parent? And there are strategies that you can do to still have that parent inclusive, even in their absence. I just think that we need to be cognizant of that. Family structure has always been the backbone of America. Families, it's been families. You break it all down, the basic building block of America is the family. When that structure's misaligned, that's when we see some of the things that this country's seeing. And so at all costs, I think that, especially from a faith-based perspective, do things to bring the family together, and it's only going to help. That parent can, from going to that faith-based program, that parent can now go home and reinforce exactly what you taught, and now you've given them a way to go over scripture with their kid when that's not their expertise. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to approach their kid in that space. And so those are things that's we good. Have to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things in our little bit of research that we did, what we found with parents is that they want to engage, they don't know how. And I think that's true with even volunteers that are showing up, but parents more specifically that we're talking about, they want to have those conversations. They don't know how to have them. And if we gave them the tools to have them, they'd have them. Right? Like they're feeling that distance between themselves and their kid with all the challenges that we're experiencing with AI and technology now. and all that stuff. Like, it's just changed so much about our world and changed so much about the family unit as you're talking about. And so, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and Jordan, it's definitely not a shameless plug, but I mentioned my book simply because I don't have a worldwide platform at this moment. Now, I am reaching some spaces nationally, but the strategies to the very things we're talking about, I put it in that book so that everybody could have an opportunity to have access
But
to
yeah,
it.
we're going to put the link in the chat. I'm good
Yeah,
with shameless plugs. We're going to put that link in the chat. People get access to it, man. I mean, we
absolutely.
need it. We have to figure out how to do this parent piece better. And ultimately, we have to figure out how to do this school piece better as well. And shout out to those of you that are engaged in parents well. Shout out to those of you that are engaged in school as well, because I know you're out
Absolutely.
there. I know that you're doing the work. But I want to continue to put this conversation at the forefront and think that out. So
Absolutely.
another question for you, bro. How should a youth leader think about partnering with parents without overstepping or creating tension? And I think about that myself too, like, because sometimes I think to myself, like, okay, man, okay, I'm teaching this thing to this student. What do their parents think about this? Or they're having this challenge at home with their parent, or whatever. Like, how do I approach that? So yeah, what do you think about that? How do we do that?
Yeah, so man, partnership is the strongest word that comes to mind, and that research shows is just so valuable. It's sometimes takes a mindset shift because parents aren't obstacles. They're not barriers to discipleship or the academic achievement of their kids. Again, they should be the primary influencers. And so the most effective models recognize parents as partners, not just as spectators. And what that may look like is, how do you engage the parent from the very first time that you meet them? Are they welcomed in your space? How do they know they're welcomed in their space? What are you saying to them to make them feel welcomed in that space? I believe that collaboration is just the best part of it. Now, it's important to note that as the youth leader, just as again as a teacher or anyone on the academic side, there are going to be things that come up as you develop relationships with youth that you may need to let their parents know about. And so those things, you have to be responsible about having those conversations with that parent and with that youth. And that goes back to the relationship. See, the number one dynamic in collaboration, in relationship, in engagement is trust. We have to be aligned, youth leaders to parents, um, schools to parents. There has to be a sense of trust that, number one, you have my kids' best interests at heart, and the only thing you want from them is for them to be successful, right? Whatever that looks like. And so through aligning those ideas, then there begins to be a sense of trust built. And from there, then the relationship can begin to flourish. But there are definitely pillars that have to be established before a parent, trusts you no matter what space you're operating from. Once that trust begins to take place, parents will definitely welcome what you have to say as it relates to their kid, because again, who doesn't want their kid to be successful? Every parent wants their kid to grow up to be successful, have a good life, and become a great citizen in our country, right? And so to do that, got to build that trust, and don't see it as a barrier, but look at it as an opportunity to invite a parent into a conversation about your faith-based organization or your campus, so that you can again see that kid flourish.
That's good. So youth leaders should be thinking about a couple things so far. One, how do they get into the school, build the right kind of relationships? And like, it sounds like a board meeting is a great way to do that if you're having trouble. But then also on the parent side of things, how do we, as much as we're trying to get youth to come, we should have a process in place for how we get the parent engaged as well. So like, because we always think through in our youth ministries, okay, I'm going to have my food, I'm going to have this and that, I'm going to have them sign up, I'm going to invite them to this thing, and then they can get plugged into this small group, and then there's all these ways for them to become engaged in the organization. Sounds like we should also have processes for the parents to become engaged in the organization as well, or touch points for them to continue to know what's going on so that trust can be built. And there also should be maybe like a rhythm to us reaching out and just kind of letting them know, hey, here's what's going on with your student, just so you know. Hey, here's what's going on with them. Can we do anything? Can we serve you in any way?
That last part that you just said is a step that a lot of youth leaders miss. So you are correct. We offer all of the tentacles of the church. We offer programs, we offer food, we offer the small groups, and all of that is fine. But what is the actual need of your families? There has to be a needs assessment. I could be totally shooting in the dark by offering all of these things, not that they're bad, but what if that's not what my community or my kids need? And so one of the things that a youth leader has to be mindful of is if I am going to serve my people appropriately, just like a school district, just like a campus, then I need to know what they actually need, not just what I want to offer. Because a lot of times what we'll do, and I've been a victim of it as well, I'll offer what I know to offer. And I'll lean in on that. That may be taking them to a concert. That may be going to McDonald's, whatever the case may be. But what if that's not what their need? What about little Susie who had a house fire a couple of weeks ago that nobody knows about, and she needs some different resources? But she's not really thinking about a concert. She's trying to figure out how she's going to get clothes on her back. How the students at school are going to receive her when she doesn't have all the coolest clothes. There's a different headspace that she's in. Or if that family structure causes one of the parents to be removed now, and that dynamic has shifted. That kid may not want to come just have a good time. Yes, the Lord is important, but you got to meet that kid where that kid is. And the only way that you know what they need is by constantly doing pulse checks, needs assessments. Yes, sir.
That's good. That's good. And for somebody who's never done a needs assessment before, tell us what that is.
It's really finding out what your flock needs. And that can look a myriad of different ways. A needs assessment could come by a formal way of knowing what the entire community needs, and your larger congregation might have taken that on. That may be something that your pastor has already done. But if you're talking about your flock of youth, it could be simple. It could be a questionnaire. It could be a questionnaire on paper. It could be a Google form that you sit down and have everybody fill out. Those are a couple of different ways that you can take a needs assessment to really know what's going on and how to meet the needs of your community.
That's good. So we talked quite a bit about parent involvement and parent engagement, but what is the distinction between them? And like, how does that matter? How does that matter for schools? How does that matter for youth ministries?
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. Involvement. There is a difference between involvement and engagement. Involvement is oftentimes on a surface level with parents. It's attendance. Maybe they come, maybe they don't. Maybe it's their presence at times, and maybe they participate at times. Engagement is deeper though. See, engagement reflects the shared responsibility. It reflects a two-way communication and ultimately a long-term commitment. It's a long-term commitment between both parties that I am going to be transparent with you on how your kid is going to grow through my program. And additionally, I welcome your feedback as well so that we can help your kid grow the best way that your kid grows, right? Whether in schools or youth ministries. Engagement, what it does is it shifts families from being informed to merely just being informed. This is what happened. This is what we did, to being invested. This is what we need you to do. And that just has a much greater impact on a child's development when engagement is in place. And that's directly grounded, in the research that I've done. It's directly grounded in the framework that I constantly use to to continue to write and go to parent organizations and go to churches and go to schools to speak on this subject. It's the engagement that we're after. We're telling parents, this is your child, and I know you want to see them successful. So these are the things that are proven to work when you're involved with us and we're involved with you the way that we need to, that two-way street of shared responsibility and long-term commitment.
No, it's really good, man. You got my wheels turning. I'm just thinking, imagining stuff in my mind and how much more valuable that is. Like, for me, obviously, this, maybe the audience would know. I'm also a licensed clinician, right? And so I'm thinking about how when I'm dealing with a teenager, there's this investment from the parent. They'll call me and say, hey, here's what's going on. And you may or may not know about this. Or I might call them and say, hey, I need to know XYZ about XYZ, because we're working together to move their teenager in the direction that they need to go in life. We're moving them towards mental and emotional health, right? So in the same way, shouldn't we do that with kids that we're trying to help them grow in their relationship with Jesus? Shouldn't I be reaching out and saying, hey, I saw this in Bradley today. Like, what, is there something going on? I saw this in, Jess today. Is there something going on at home? And then mom's like, yeah, XYZ. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll encourage her in this way. Hey, mom, here's some passages of scripture that I think of when I think about this. And I think the thing that's hard for youth workers when they hear this is it just sounds like a lot of work. Like even as I say it, it just sounds like so much more work on top of the things that you're already having to do, right? But I think we also have to recognize that the way that we've been doing it isn't working, right?
Sure.
Because
Sure.
like kids are not growing in their relationship with Jesus in the ways that we'd want them to. Students aren't showing up to church in the way that we would want them to, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we have to pay attention to that. And I think as I look at what's happening right now in church and in Christendom, like I quietly am becoming more and more convinced that like church is going to get smaller and more communal and more like tribal. And I'm not trying to say tribal in a negative sense, in like I'm with these people and they rock with me and I rock with them, and they know me and I know them, and I have real relationship with them and they have real relationship with me, and I'm really growing in Christ and they're really growing in Christ as a consequence. And I think as youth leaders, I think that means we have to do our best to go deeper with the students that we can go deeper with the leaders that we can go deeper with, and replicate that. Go deeper with the parents that we can go deeper with, because I can't go deep with all of them, but I can go deep with 5, and then encourage, my volunteers to go deep with a couple and see what God does through that,
Man, you're talking that talk, and that's the right talk, Jordan. We can't be superficial in our approach to Christianity. And maybe some youth leader out there, you've had some success with, and you have a large group of youth because of the success of your church, etc. But that only means that you need to structure it in such a way that those youth have somebody that they can go to, because you can't reach them all. Not and go deep, right? You may be able to speak over the mic and plant a seed, but Jesus did it best when he was relational with everybody he met. And if you can't have a relationship, a close, appropriately intimate relationship with those youth, you have to structure your ministry in a way where your volunteers that are under you are now trained in a way that they can reach those youth. And so the more youth that God gives you, the more you need to be structured so that everyone has the opportunity to have their needs met. You know how they say it in the church, it's ours to give and yours to accept. Well, you just want to make sure that the structure is there so that they have the opportunity to have their needs met. And it is work, Jordan. It is work. And perhaps that's the reason why God won't let me pick one or the other. That might be why he still has me operating in both spaces, because he's saying, look, I've invested in you too much, Willie. I gave you mindset. I gave you resources. I gave you capacity. Go use them for my kingdom. And since that is who you is, go use it for the campus as well. And so
that's good.
I think that's where we are in the world. Things have changed so much that we have to be intentional, and we cannot operate in superficial spaces.
That's good.
We just can't. We gotta go deep.
Students don't want to be there.
They don't. They don't, and they know the difference.
Students don't want to be in those spaces. They don't rock with people like that are inauthentic, and and it doesn't matter what. They don't want to rock with teachers that are that way. They don't want to rock with coaches that are that way. If their parents are that way, they ain't feeling it. They might be respectful and honorable, but ultimately they're gonna be like, yo, my parents don't keep it a buck. They don't want to rock with anybody who's gonna be that way.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with knowing that you don't know how to reach certain kids. That's what trainings are for. That's what having community of faith-based believers is for, right? So that you can learn these different tools to reach kids. That's why your podcast is here. That's why Reframe is a thing, right? Because it's needed in these spaces. Through time is how we find out how to become better at what we do. And if the youth leader that's listening is feeling like, I don't have all the tools, keep going, reach out for mentorship, reach out to Jordan. I make myself available via email, via phone, and I am a resource just as well as you are, Jordan, because at the end of the day, God holds us accountable for all the things he's allowed us to experience to make sure that somebody else can have it to reach his kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to. One man plants, another man waters. But God provides the increase, and we just have to make sure we're available to plant and water.
That's good. Amen. What are some barriers, in your opinion, that often prevent strong partnership between schools, parents, and youth leaders?
Barriers are a real thing. The most common barrier, honestly, are misaligned expectations and past experience. Let me unpack that a little bit. Oftentimes, especially when we're newer in the space of engaging with parents, we don't set expectations for them. Like, we don't tell them exactly what we want them to do, exactly what this partnership should look like. We don't open the communication to hear what they need from us in order to have an effective partnership, because maybe we just didn't know that we needed to, whatever the case may be. But that's a barrier. And then past experiences. And the past experiences could be on behalf of the parent. Jordan, if I came from a situation in church as a kid and I saw some things happen that may have mentally scarred me, then I'm cautious into developing a relationship with the church. I may know my child needs to be there to develop their, for spiritual formation, but I'm still very cautious. Our past experiences shape who we are. And so we have to be aware that everybody has past experiences. And then we have to work to be transparent and build that trust so that those relationships can develop. Oftentimes, families may feel unheard or unwelcome. What does that look like? If I'm a blue-collar worker and I work in where there's mud, can I come to church with my muddy boots on and still be welcomed with open arms? Right? If I'm working 2 jobs, what is the church willing to do to make sure that though I can't be there for my child for this program because I got to keep the lights on, are they willing to record that service so that I can see it later and still cheer for my baby when she gets home or when I go pick her up? It's those type of situations where we have to be out of the box when we're talking about being intentional about developing the relationships between organization and family. And we have to be authentic about our engagement. Some institutions may lack the training. Well, find the training. Find the mentorship. Look for the resources. Reach out to people. I've been doing that my entire life. Reaching out to those that have went the path before me so that I could make sure that I was doing it the best that I could as I was coming behind them. Because the fact is, when trust hasn't been built, I don't care what your intentions are. They may fall short. We have to know that sustainable partnerships, they begin with humility, clarity, and that develops relational trust.
It's good.
Yes, sir.
It's good. No, man, I really appreciate it, bro. It's really good insight. I know this is going to be helpful for people that are listening. It's helpful for me. I mean, I'm processing stuff even as I'm hearing you talk. And here's my last question for you. If a youth leader walked away with one mindset shift about supporting and discipling students in this whole realm that we're talking about, parents, school, being connected to both, what would you want it to be?
I would want that youth leader to have the mindset shift of asking from going from how can I help students to how can I strengthen the system around students? Systems thinking. What does the ecosystem that the student is involved in by way of my organization look like to holistically support that kid? Because it does not have to be just me giving Bible verses and just me giving a sermon on Sunday. It can be an ecosystem of support because we all need each other. And what better way than to offer that support than by way of partnering with that parent to say, hey, we recognize that we didn't birth this kid and you did. So at different intervals, we're going to ask you to come alongside and be with us as we do certain things, because yes, our job is to reinforce the spiritual formation, but we also realize that God gave that burden to you first.
That's really good.
When families, schools, and faith communities work together, Jordan, young people don't just succeed academically or spiritually. Man, they develop, and they develop holistically. So that would be my takeaway. Having a mindset shift of not just how can I help this student, but how can I strengthen the system around that student to help.
No, that's really good, bro. I mean, I think that makes me think about all types of stuff. And it pulls in the school piece too, because that's where they spend most of their time. So I have to care about what's happening at their school.
Absolutely.
I have to care about what's going on there and what the needs and the challenges are and how I can have the influence that I'm supposed to have based on the tools and skills that God's given me to influence that thing. And I think we could probably look at that and be overwhelmed by it because there's so many things that need to change. But then what if we can just change one thing?
Sure.
What if we can be a part of changing one thing?
Sure.
What kind of impact can that have long term in the life of a young person? And so for those of you that are listening, I just encourage you, man, there may be one thing that you can do to affect that system. But once again, like, the story isn't about us, it's about God. And he's going to use that in the same way that he uses other youth leaders to maybe affect one thing or multiple things to bring about the transformation that needs to be brought about, as you were pointing, Dr. Kelley, for that youth to be developed in the way that they need to be developed. And hopefully that is holistically, so their faith is growing along with their capacity to do with whatever God has called them to do with their life.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. You summed it up best, sir.
Man, I really appreciate your time, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. Anytime.
Yeah, man. Yep. So appreciate you guys listening. As we always say, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. You got questions, you got comments, hit us up. You know where to find us. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Take care.